On today's Versus episode, we take a look at one of my most requested matchups ever. Well, sort of. The Blacklight Virus from Prototype versus the Flood. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another episode of Sci-Fi Versus. Those of you who have been with my channel for a while have probably noticed a little bit of a trend. Most videos have ya boy Daniel suggesting Blacklight Virus versus the Flood for one of my matchups. Last time I checked, he was at 140 suggestions, and I went back through my comments and he's not exaggerating. So today we're doing it. If you don't know what the Blacklight Virus is, don't worry, I'll give a full breakdown. We'll take a look at both of them actually, and then at the end we'll put them through two different matchups. First of all, which virus is more deadly and would win if they were both unleashed in the same planet or galaxy. Then at the end, I'll look at a custom matchup suggested by Daniel. So what is the Blacklight Virus? Well, it has a sort of complicated history. It was created by Gentek, a company within the Prototype universe, through the meddling and manipulation of other various nefarious diseases. Like the Flood, the Blacklight Virus is highly contagious, it's transmitted primarily through physical contact, and there seems to be some element of a greater virus hive mind at play. So the virus infects someone by coming into contact with their bloodstream or their other bodily fluids. This can be through the virus in its pure form, or through the bite, scratch, or other attack of an infected person. Once infected, you could say that an individual's cells start to evolve, fundamentally changing the person on a biological level. Most affected people actually die and become sort of zombies. However, a small portion of those affected get incredible abilities. Alex Mercer, the protagonist of the Prototype games, is one of these individuals. He can consume others, gaining their appearance, but also their memories, and he can shapeshift individual parts of his body, creating shields or knife-like protrusions. He also gained enhanced speed and strength, as well as incredible regenerative abilities. However, Alex's case is extraordinarily rare. Less than a handful of people have actually undergone this type of transformation. In nearly 100% of cases, someone infected with the Blacklight Virus dies and turns into some sort of zombie. Most zombies are what are called walkers, which are kind of just the shuffling masses. There are also advanced forms which are dangerous individually, although it's unclear whether these are actually created out of infected hosts or are created out of pure Blacklight biomass. We know for a fact that the Blacklight Virus does accumulate biomass, and much like the Flood, spawns creatures from it. An example of this would be the Hydra, a gigantic subterranean beast. The Blacklight Virus does seem to be a little less virulent than some of the others that we've looked at in this series. In Prototype 2, we learned that Manhattan has actually been separated into different zones after the infection, with some healthy people still living on the island. This is due to the fact that transmission usually occurs through physical contact and that carriers are usually zombies, though a concentrated version of the virus does seem to appear in certain areas, then spread physically in the form of vines or other structures. There is, however, no indication that the virus has actually left Manhattan, and it does seem to be a little less focused on spreading than the Flood or the Tyrannid, for example. That being said, as we see in Prototype 2, there is the possibility for transmitting the virus on a larger scale through the use of evolved individuals like Alex Mercer, who could transport the virus physically, releasing it upon new populations. The last thing I want to talk about is the virus's hardiness. In Prototype 1, we actually see a Blacklight infected superhost reject a virus meant to incapacitate them. This would go on to create the Supreme Hunter. That being said, the blood tox chemical does seem to be effective against not only the virus, but also any infected hosts. Those like Alex Mercer also gain incredible healing abilities. He was shot at close range with an assault rifle and survived, and later he shrugs off tank rounds and other heavy munitions. The Blacklight does seem to have some sort of biological hive mind, which manifested with Elizabeth Green and to a lesser extent in Alex. Let's now talk about the Flood. The Flood are parasitic life forms and one of the toughest enemies in science fiction. The Flood, like the Blacklight, have a central hive mind, becoming more intelligent as more individuals are consumed and added to the group consciousness. Most Flood outbreaks begin with the lowly infection forms, which use barbs and stalks to crack into a user's nervous system. The individual who's infected is changed into a variety of forms with a focus on either combat or spreading the infection. As the flood begins to infect others, they collect biomass in a central location. Here we see the development of intelligent flood forms, including Graveminds. These beings do several things. They increase the sophistication of the flood, they lead the flood on an individual level, and they process and use the information and memories of consumed individuals to develop a grand overall strategy for the flood, which typically has the purpose of consuming as much matter as possible. This is why I say a flood infection is a slippery slope. As the infection progresses and more individuals are consumed, the flood gets exponentially more deadly. Not only are there more forms walking around, but the species becomes more sophisticated and intelligent. While individual flood may seem mindless, they work together towards a greater purpose. As the virus propagates, this common goal becomes harder and harder to stop. The larger the infection, the more effective the flood become as a whole. The seriousness of an infection thus can be measured by the sophistication of the flood's central intelligence, which seems to be directly correlated with the amount of biomass collected. Late-stage flood outbreaks see not only the development of incredibly powerful minds, but also the flood's integration into a planet itself. This includes the pollution of a planet's atmosphere and water, allowing a faster and easier propagation of the virus. The flood have other abilities as well. They can create pure forms out of flood matter. These are often infantry-sized, but have no theoretical upper limit. On a galactic scale, they can also harness and use precursor technology, although that's not really important for this matchup. With our descriptions out of the way, let's now move to the matchup. In round 1, we're looking at which is deadlier, the flood or the Blacklight Virus. The Blacklight Virus has a few key weaknesses when compared with the flood. It doesn't spread or propagate nearly as quickly. We don't see the flood consciousness become more intelligent with more consumed matter, although individuals who consume others gain their memories. And the virus doesn't have the same need or ability to spread quickly. However, I'd say the greatest and deadliest quality of the Blacklight is the creation of these super individuals, like Alex Mercer. However, it seems like these individuals don't necessarily serve the best interests of the virus, and sometimes in fact it may be the exact opposite. However, these beings like Mercer are incredibly dangerous. They seem to gain strength over time, they can easily stand in with local populations, and it does appear like the central hive mind can operate through them to some degree. The average low-level Blacklight zombie is a step down from those of the flood. They don't gain any sort of strength, speed, or durability boosts. However, pure Blacklight creations, again like the Hydra, are very, very dangerous. Still, the only realistic way to stop a flood infection is to nip it in the bud, or rather the spore, early on. I sincerely believe that an individual infected by the Blacklight virus would still be susceptible to further flood infection. I just think the flood supercell itself is more hardy. No creation of even the Forerunners could stop the spread of the flood. While Blacklight has shown some virus resistance, the blood tox chemical was shown to be effective. I mean, this isn't surprising. The source of the Blacklight virus is the red light virus, which seems to be a creation of man, or perhaps nature. The flood, on the other hand, see their origin in the unbelievably advanced species known as the precursor. One of the flood's greatest assets is its adaptability. It only prefers to infect sentient beings with a nervous system. I see no reason why the flood supercell couldn't adapt to Blacklight biomass. So when talking about deadliness or which virus would win in a one-on-one fight, I think unsurprisingly we have to give it to the flood. However, let's look at Daniel's scenario. He says both have a fresh start, both are put into a city with a population of 1 million people, neither will leave the city for this battle, neither side may infect the other. So I think this matchup depends on a few things. First of all, we need to determine whether the Blacklight virus is in some sort of powdered form or whether we have just a single zombie who will infect others through scratches and bites. But more importantly, we need to know whether anyone infected by Blacklight will develop these superhuman powers like Alex Mercer. If none of these extraordinary individuals are developed, then I give the win to the flood. I think they will spread quicker, and even if they only manage to consume a few thousand people before they're discovered by the Blacklight, that would likely be enough for at least the formation of a proto-Gravemind, which I think gives them a bit of an advantage. If, however, an individual like Alex Mercer is produced, which is certainly possible, I mean, if you have a few thousand people being infected, the chances are at least marginal, then the Blacklights certainly have a chance. These individuals are incredibly dangerous and could likely stop the flood from spreading. flooding. So in the scenario one of these beings is produced, I'll give it to Blacklight, but only 55% of the time. In the other scenario where no super being is produced, then I'll give it to the flood. But that's just my rambling opinion. Let me know what you think. Am I underestimating the Blacklight virus? Am I overestimating the flood, or vice versa? Let me know what you think down in the comment section. If you like this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more similar content in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, may the force be with you.